This is Kits and Wagers. This is the start of the Premier League season. I am Adam Zdroik, joined by Chris Owen. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. We had a lot of discussions to make ahead of the season. This is game week 1. Chris, we had our futures podcast last week. Are you ready for game week 1? We're going to give more bets to the people. We're going to give more analysis, and also special this season, we have a team parlay to close up the show. Chris, welcome in. How's it going? Are you ready for this? Liverpool at Fulham on Saturday. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm fired up. We had it was like a little teaser, like kind of like an appetizer pod with our Premier League futures last week. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go check that out as well. There's some good stuff in there. And now where it's Thursday morning for me, nearly noon for you, we're ready to get into it. And game week 1, who's not pumped up for this? We had a short 2-month break where frankly, I was just kind of checked out for a bit, and now I'm completely locked in. This weekend, my girlfriend has left. She's going to a bachelorette party, so that means I've got locked on the TV, which is important. Kicks off. I can assure you that I'm not waking up at 4:30 a.m. for Liverpool Tottenham or Liverpool Fulham, but I will catch that when I wake up on the record. And then, from there, we've got a number of matches at 7 a.m. And then, of course, I'll check out the later game. And then Sunday, do my part. And, I love the extended highlights is a ritual on Sunday nights for me. So definitely going to hit those up and excited. The biggest thing that I'm excited for is our team kits and wagers parlay. So let's get into that. That's got me going.
Yeah, talking about the watching matches. I think the big thing this season is that NBC's getting a little closer to having everything on Peacock. Now I think I
Yeah.
saw maybe 2 or 3 matches only are going to be on national TV, and then the rest are going to be on Peacock. So if you don't have Peacock, you got to get Peacock. That's kind of what it comes down to, at least in the States. That's just how it is in the
Yeah.
States. So I mean, they're playing every match, but you're going to be on like a minute delay from actually live TV. So that's one of the things I don't like about streaming live sports. But
Yeah, I don't really get why they took typically they'd have that like like the latest game on Saturday on NBC.
yeah,
It's game week 1, give the people what they want. Not that it really matters, but like if you want to watch on broadcast television, like the only way you can watch it is on USA Network. And so I think that's kind of weird, and like not everybody has USA Network, whereas like you used to be able to watch the big game was always on that time slot on NBC. So I don't know. Plus, yeah, everything's on Peacock, so I feel like it's just kind of game over now.
yeah. There's like we need more subscribers. Subscribe to Peacock. That's all I care about. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's not too surprising, I guess. But so we got
no,
3 matches we're talking about, and before we get there, I've been on the sports betting page here. Just go to soccer on rotowire.com, sports betting. We got a lot of good stuff. As you can see, we got the futures podcast up here. I got my article for game week 1. We now have added futures odds. So we got World Cup odds, but we also got EPL winner odds. We got Manchester City. You can see right here, minus 165. You can click into there. And as usual, we have our bet comparisons across multiple sites. We got DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, PointsBet, and we can just click right in here. We're first game we're talking about Arsenal at Crystal Palace. You can see here the money has steadily gone towards Arsenal. You can see here August 4th. Sorry, I'm reading opposite right here. July
yeah,
15th, Crystal Palace is plus 235 to win. Now Crystal Palace are plus 340 to win. So a lot of money going into Arsenal after their preseason. That means Arsenal minus 125 to win, and then you can get over 2.5 goals at minus 110, under 2.5 goals at minus 110. So the implied goal total is pretty much sitting right there at 2.5. What are the initial thoughts right here? We got Arsenal with a couple new guys. Crystal Palace didn't really add anyone who's going to be, well, I guess maybe I shouldn't say that. Decore is now in their midfield, so they added a midfield piece. But for the most part, Crystal Palace are pretty much the same. Olise's out with an injury. You got the Arsenal guys who really haven't played in preseason, so I don't think they're change really anything, but we do have William Saliba projected in the starting 11, which changes things up a little bit from what we've seen for Arsenal because he was loaned out, and then you got Zinchenko in there, you got Jesus in there. A little bit of a different team than last season. Crystal Palace won 3-0 home against Arsenal, so a little different than what we saw. But initial thoughts here: you think Arsenal should be favored by the -125 right here?
Yeah, I feel like that when look at the line movement, we went from 105 to -105, so just a short movement. But that must have been when Arsenal signed Gabriel Jesus to be their forward. So and ever since then, we've just seen it go up. I don't really understand. Recently it's gone towards Arsenal here, so I'm not totally sure why it continues to go that way. I mean, Crystal Palace played them really tough last season, 3-0 in April and then 2-2 in October. So it wasn't like Arsenal won any of those matches, but to see them as like such big favorites, yes, they did add Zinchenko at left back, and I feel like he'll get a fair bit of time. But now they've got really good competition at outside back for Arsenal. So I mean, maybe the cream rises to the top there, but adding a goal scorer, it'll be interesting to see how if Gabriel Jesus can kind of like pull them out of. They were missing goals in so many matches where it's like, okay, they dominated, and then just couldn't quite find the cutting edge. I don't know. Palace last season, don't quote me here, but I believe they were like in the top like 3 or 4 teams in terms of draws, so they were able to take points from tough matches. And I think it'll be tough. Even last season, they drew them once and beat them. So the money towards Arsenal here, I'm not super a fan of, but I still think Crystal Palace are tough enough to where they're not really missing anybody from the lineup. I still think they can take a point or two here.
Yeah, another new thing. If you watched this last season, we got a new thing here where we're going to be plugging in bets for all these games just on a graphic, so it's a little easier to look at instead of us rambling about our stats and stuff and giving all these picks. But so I think we're kind of on the same page in terms of this matchup. I think Crystal Palace played really well under Vieira at home last season. They only allowed 17 goals at home last season. If you look at the table, the only teams who do better than that last season at home, Liverpool and Manchester United. Next up, Arsenal and Crystal Palace both allowed 17 goals at home last season. So I think that's a pretty relevant number for this matchup. It's clear like they play better at home, especially under Vieira, but they got Guehi, they got Anderson in the back. Those guys are still there. As I said, most of the same guys from last season. So I don't think nothing's going to change too much. So I'm going under 2.5 goals. You're getting about even odds, -110. I think that's a pretty safe move here. We get Arsenal, sure, they're adding firepower and all this, but Arsenal on the road last season, away from home, not as great. Negative -5 goal differential, and that's kind of where I'm coming at. This is a pretty big spot for them. I mean, a lot of people look at it like, okay, Crystal Palace not very good, but I mean, if we remember 2 months ago, I think in our final show, I took Crystal Palace to beat Manchester United in their final home match. It was so. I kind of look back to that, and it still seems like Crystal Palace aren't getting any respect, and I don't know why. If you follow me on Twitter, I also like Crystal Palace to finish top 10, so I guess this kind of goes into one of my futures bets as well. But you're kind of in line with me.
Yeah, I definitely am. I did look up that, and Crystal Palace and Brighton actually shared the lead last season in terms of draws. They both had 15 draws from 38 matches. For me here, we're both kind of in line. I like Crystal Palace double chance. Originally, I had looked up to see if you could get Crystal Palace a half goal, and it's the same. It's +100. So keep that in mind. And then other thing here is Crystal Palace in 19 home matches last season, they won 7, drew 8, and only lost 4 matches. So they were really good at home. They're going to be hosting Arsenal. Arsenal wasn't great there, so I just think that Crystal Palace can either get a win or they can get a draw, and you're getting +100 odds. So it seems like a reasonable enough bet to make. So that's where I'm at on this particular match.
In terms of the technical aspect, you kind of mentioned it, but I kind of want to get it out in the open here. So DraftKings, maybe probably other places, they list double chance and they list plus half a goal. That's the same thing. They list PK, technically, pick 'em, and draw no bet, technically the same thing. So if at times last season we saw different odds and you could capitalize when, plus half a goal is different than double chance, you could capitalize on the better odds kind of thing. But for this one, the odds are the same. So it seems like maybe they realized that they were kind of dumb and listing two different bets, even though they're the same thing with different odds. So maybe they figured out their mistakes, but I guess we'll see. Uh, we'll see that moving on throughout the season. So it's something to keep in mind if you look at the draw no bets, if you're looking at the double chances. So
I feel like if you spend enough time on DraftKings or FanDuel, eventually you'll find those same situations over
yeah,
and over again, where it's like, oh, maybe they got it, maybe they figured it out, but I don't think that's the case here. I feel
right.
like
Definitely when
as
you
the
put
season progresses, we'll find some more of these.
Yeah, definitely when you're like putting together parlays and something, they have their own created parlays, and as you'll see at some point when you actually create the parlays yourself instead of the ones that they automatically create, sometimes you'll get better odds. So it just depends if you want to be lazy or not, if you want to make this couple extra bucks. But Saturday is we have 6 games on Saturday. So I guess this is kind of how it was last season, running with 6 games on Saturday. You got the 10 a.m. Eastern slate, and then you got the early and then the later match. But instead of talking about all these bigger teams, Arsenal, Manchester City, we threw in a little wrench. We were going to talk about one of the promoted clubs, but we'll stick with Leeds United home against Wolverhampton. And I'll click in here. We got the odds. Leeds are home, and the odds really haven't changed that much. They've been going up and down a little bit, but we can get Leeds to win plus 130, and then Wolverhampton plus 220. And then over 2.5 goals plus 100, minus 2.5 goals minus 125. And this one has a little bit. Leeds have a few more injuries. They also lost some pretty relevant players. They lost Calvin Phillips, they lost Rafinha, so they're going to be looking pretty different. Wolverhampton, they're not going to have Raul Jimenez, but for the most part, they got pretty much the same team as last season. They didn't really add anyone of significance. I guess, they got Morgan Gibbs White back from a loan, and he may start in this one. We'll see how that looks. I guess they added Nathan Collins, but as you can see from Leeds, a bit different. We have, first off, Jesse Marsh said Patrick Bamford was 100% healthy. He's looked awesome this week. So
Nice.
that's one thing that, completely changes anything that happened last season, because Patrick Bamford, I can't remember exactly what he had, but it was around 15 goals 2 seasons ago. He was awesome for him. If they can get Bamford back in form, I don't think they're going to be, near the relegation zone, but we'll see how that goes. But I mean, so in the midfield, as you can see in this projected 11, Brendan Aronson comes in, Mark Roca comes in, Tyler Adams comes in, Rasmus Christensen comes in. So you got a bunch of new guys. Then you throw in Patrick Bamford. It's, almost a half new team. Basically, half their team is new. So a bit different here. But what do you think? How much is that gonna matter in terms of cohesion? Do you think, Wolverhampton, they played offensive? Is that cohesion gonna help them away from home here? Or do you think Jesse Marsh gets a win in the season opener here? His first Premier League season opener, that is.
Yeah, I've got a number of thoughts here. First one, and we've covered this extensively, but Leeds is playing at home. There's just, we've looked over these matches pretty all last season, the home team, consistently either, finds a result. And it is the opener. Leeds is going to be buzzing. So I think just given that, I do feel a little bit more strongly towards Leeds here. Plus 130 seems like a lot to be that highly favored over Wolves, who's been a stingy team. The other thing, and you mentioned it, is a healthy Patrick Bamford is a big game changer for Leeds. I am a little bit worried about missing. I would argue last season I think it's pretty clear Calvin Phillips and Rafinha were their 2 best players by far. So losing those 2 is definitely a hit. They added a couple guys, and Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson. But I think Patrick Bamford is a big changer. In the season prior to last year, he appeared in all 38 matches. He made 37 starts. Last season, he appeared in 9 matches, 7 starts. So just like a fraction of what he did. And in that previous season where he played in 38 matches, he had 17 goals, 7 assists. So, was very influential over that attack. And as long as he's fit, you have somebody who can score goals. And even like harking back to Arsenal here, where they last season had no goal scorer, they were probably a goal scorer away from a Champions League spot. And so I think with Bamford up top, they have a much better chance. And I would take them because they're at home and because they have an actual goal scorer and somebody they can kind of target.
Yeah, we even look back at last season, and you have the two results when Leeds were battling relegation, and Wolverhampton, they finished 10th in the table. Leeds allowed the second most goals in the league, 79, and Leeds they won at Wolverhampton 3-2 in March, and it was 1-1 at Leeds in October. So you take those results, you consider everything. I guess the 3-2 match, there was a Raul Jimenez red card, which kind of changed things a little bit. So I guess you can maybe take that one with a grain of salt. But still, the fact that Wolves couldn't beat Leeds last season when Leeds had a bad season, I think is pretty relevant. So we look at our bets here, and I'm kind of going off what you said there. Leeds money line, pretty simple, plus 130. You're getting plus odds. I don't think Wolverhampton did enough here. They lost Romain Saiss on the back line. I know they got Collins back there, and their defense is usually pretty solid. They haven't really shown a ton in the preseason personally. We'll see how in form Pedro Neto can be because he's coming back from injury. He never really, got up to form, got up to full fitness at the end of last season. And they always, even though Raul Jimenez struggled last season, they still weren't that good at scoring. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually line up because, they got Hwang, they got Podence, they got Nato, they got Fabio Silva, they got guys who can play up there, but are any of them going to be converting goals? We'll see. As for the Leeds back line, still kind of shaky. Cooper's out, Ayling's out, Dallas is out. Definitely relevant, but I think, they added Christensen. Strike, not really a left back. He's going to play there. We'll see. But they got Ruben Koch and Diego Llorente playing center back. I think that'll be fine. I just like what Leeds did in the offseason, and I'll take them at home. And I think they're a bit more exciting than Wolves are. Maybe that's a bad reason to bet on someone, but they scored 6 goals in their last friendly. It was against Cagliari. They played well against. Who else they play? I want to say Arsenal, Crystal Palace, or Aston Villa and Crystal Palace, I believe it was in preseason friendlies. So, for the most part, I like how they're playing. Wolves, not as exciting. We'll see how things turn out for Wolverhampton. But, I mean, as you can see in the odds, it's just like there's not a ton of buzz going around Wolves, and I think that's kind of showing up in the odds.
Yeah, that makes sense. I took over 2.5 goals here. The under, which is I'm a little bit I'm kind of in the middle of this one here because under 2.5 is, I believe, minus 125, so you get worse odds. Over 2.5 is plus 100. But last season, as you mentioned, Leeds conceded the second most goals in the Premier League at 79. They're missing 3 players in their back line, which could lead to a couple goals here, but also as I mentioned extensively, Patrick Bamford back in the lineup. They did add a couple pieces that could help Leeds score a couple more goals here. So, given that you get better odds, and this game could see a potentially more goals, I went over 2.5 rather than the under. So, Wolves are strong defensively. They conceded, I believe, like the fifth least goals last season. But just given what we saw with Leeds and now 2 teams who have a pretty strong attacks, I think we might see over 2.5 goals here, plus 100.
Yeah, I'm looking at preseason friendlies. I don't know how much you want to put into this here, but so I mentioned Aston Villa, Crystal Palace for Leeds. They got some run against other Premier League clubs, but you look at Wolves. They were recently in Portugal. They had split matches against 2 Portuguese teams, against Sporting Lisbon and Firenze. Both 1-1 matches. Those were on back-to-back days, so their full team didn't actually play together, I guess you could say. They beat Besiktas, they lost to Levante out of La Liga. They beat Alaves, who I want to say just got relegated. So I just think Leeds coming off probably a better preseason, a more competitive preseason. And based off everything I said, I'll ride with Leeds here. I think. Do we want to agree with everything? I don't know. I think this could be like a 2-1 result because, yeah, I do think Leeds will give up some goals. I do think Wolves will give up some goals, but I think we're, so far we're on the same page. Unfortunately, we may be on the same page for the next game we're talking about.
I feel like I don't necessarily feel as strongly about Leeds money line as you might.
Okay.
But I just Wolves are Wolves. They play everybody tough. They somehow just grind out games. So, Leeds at home helps, but I just, money line, them winning, I don't feel as strongly as you might.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm that strong on it, but okay. It's my bet, so I am that strong on it.
Not stitious, but I am a little stitious.
All right, so last match of the weekend, we got West Ham at home against Manchester City. If you remember correctly, this match was 2-2, second to last match, end of last season. Jared Bowen scored 2 goals. I believe they were both in the first half. Then Manchester City came back. They got 2. They got a point, which was a key point, ended up being in the table. So we're looking at the odds. Unsurprisingly, I guess we can go back here. Minus 270, Manchester City was back middle of July. Now they're minus 285. I assume because people are just betting on Manchester City, which tends to happen when you have these elite teams. The odds just tend to go in their favor. People don't like betting against the top teams. They don't like betting against Manchester City or Liverpool or Manchester United for that matter. So we got West Ham to win plus 750. And then we're looking at, so we got over 3.5 goals plus 140. And if you want to go under 2.5 goals is plus 140 as well. So the implied goal total is probably sitting around there about 3 or so. But we got Erling Haaland. We had to remove Bernardo Silva from the projected 11 this morning because there's heavy rumors that he's linked with Barcelona right now. And we could see Gundogan in the lineup. We could see a new signing, Calvin Phillips in the lineup. On the downside, we could see Nathan Ake playing center back, and he was supposed to be on another team, but now he has to start possibly for Manchester City. We'll see if John Stone starts, but with West Ham, pretty much the same. They got Scamacca up front. I'm not sure he's going to start in the opener. They got Aguerd from Nice, from Rennes, from the French league, wherever he came from, the center back, but he's injured, so he's not playing. Doesn't matter anyway. But, I mean, you can look at the West Ham lineup. This is probably the same exact lineup they played against Manchester City 3 months ago or whatever. So nothing much has changed for them. Do you think Manchester City should be favored at minus 185 here? Or 285, sorry.
I mean, that's a lot, but yeah, I don't see them having an issue with West Ham. That was a huge game last year when West Ham did. The thing for them was they got up early 2-0, like right away, and then West Ham kind of clawed back, or Manchester City clawed back and got the equalizer later in the match. So yeah, they got the equalizer 86th minute. I think Mara scored a penalty. So I still think City, opening game of the season. What do they? I mean, they go out, they win the title. What do? They just reload. They did sell a couple players, which was interesting. In Sterling, Zinchenko, and maybe now Bernardo Silva, which I feel like would be a mistake. But now with Barcelona comes knocking, I guess it's tough to turn down for him. But yeah, so I still think City's the play here. Unfortunately, you don't really get the best odds for the over unders. Like over 3.5 is, what do we say, plus 140.
Yeah.
West Ham are strong defensively. Typically I don't see this match going to be like a four goal thriller or City winning by 4-0. So I would avoid that. And then the under doesn't give me a ton either. So I'd probably stray away from that. But I do think that I'm excited to see Erling Haaland in the Premier League. We talked about him pretty extensively last week, and I still think that he might be the play here. And then we also talked about Kevin De Bruyne too. So I'm a little bit more keyed in on some of like the goal scoring props, which is, I think Haaland was minus 125. I got to scroll down here, but I believe he was minus 125, and then Kevin De Bruyne is plus 180. And then also when you look back in their previous matches. West Ham typically good in terms of allowing shots and shots on target, but they allowed eight shots last season to Manchester City and then 9 shots on target. So I think for me, I took Kevin De Bruyne plus 2 shots on target at plus 100. So just for the reasons I listed back there, but go check out our futures pod. We talked extensively about Kevin De Bruyne and about a couple other people, including Holland. But I think Kevin De Bruyne here is going to put a couple balls on the net, and in what should be another City win, in my opinion.
I had a couple sneaky long shot bets. One was Wilfred Zaha to win Golden Boot. The other, Kevin De Bruyne. You can get him right now plus 3,500 to win Golden Boot, and it's a long shot, but plus 3,500. Maybe the best player in the league, one of the best players in the league, one of the best players in the world, 15 goals last season. Just someone who may get more opportunities with Holland eating up, defensive attention. That'll definitely be something to look at. But yeah, I look through. I'm probably looking through the preseason results a little too much here. Like you just look through West Ham's results, not a ton to show from it, not a ton of goals. I don't even think Antonio played in the last friendly. There's been no reasoning to say that he's injured. I haven't read anything online. I assume he's going to start. We'll see what happens with that. So if you're watching, I got both teams to score, no draw, plus 140. And I think that's just coming at Nathan Ake starting on the back line. Hasn't seen a ton of time really throughout his tenure here at Manchester City. They still, they were going for Cucurella and didn't happen for him. And, they still want more help defensively. They're eventually going to get it. But right now, they lost Laporte to injury. So that's kind of why they're scrambling right now. So I think that's kind of why I'm looking at both teams to score, no draw. I even think West Ham could steal this one if things, play out perfectly for them. But as you said, I think it was 17 shots on target in the 2 matches last season. And even in the 2-2 result, West Ham only had 2 shots on target. So 2 goals, 2 shots on target. Probably not going to happen again. But West Ham at home, might as well take a chance. They're getting pretty good odds if you want to go that route. I considered West Ham plus 1.5. That's definitely in there. I think that's only, I want to say it's minus 130 or something. So I took something else with better odds. But I think both teams will score. That's what it comes down to. And I think there will be a winner. So I think the positive here is that we're both getting, we're both laying out bets here at plus odds. And I think that's kind of been the case for all 3 of these matches. But
yeah, I feel like kind of a coward when I come on this podcast and lay down a minus odds. Like, oh, come on. But sometimes you got to do it when it's too sweet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's kind of how I do my article too. It's like what's the point of like writing up? It's like, okay, if you want to bet like Newcastle, I guess we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But if you want to bet like Chelsea to win, like we're not going to come on and be like, yeah, I think Chelsea are going to win, so let's take them at minus 155. It's like, where's the fun in that? There's no fun.
Yeah, that's a terrible bet.
So that's kind of why we always at Kits and Wagers here we lean on the plus bets. And speaking of plus bets, the new special to Kits and Wagers, we have a team parlay, and so before the show, I put a bet in, Chris puts a bet in, it comes together, and then we got a team parlay. So there we go. My pick, Leicester money line. Chris's pick, Newcastle money line. Pretty simple. Got a couple bets here. Put them together. Plus 229 odds. And Chris, I've been talking here, so I'll let you give your reasoning on Newcastle home against Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, it goes back to like December, January when Newcastle were pretty down. Like they were kind of last season. They found themselves early in a bit of a relegation scrap. What do? They got new ownership. They got some funds injected into the club, which is always big, an owner who will buy players. And then, of course, they picked up Eddie Howe as their manager, who's done a really great job with them. To end the season, they won 4 of 6 games, and the 2 that they lost was 1-0 to Liverpool and then a 5-0 loss to Manchester City. So, like, nothing to scoff at, though. They played incredibly well. Like I said before, they were in the relegation scrap. They ended the season in 11th, and a lot of people, when we talked about the futures bet or futures pod, a lot of people have Newcastle as like a dark horse to play in Europe next season. So I think this is interesting. And of course, on the other side, they're playing a Nottingham Forest team who haven't been in the league in a while. Yes, have they purchased like 12 to 13-ish players to kind of supplement them now joining the big boys? But with that comes sometimes a lack of cohesion. I really like where they've strengthened for Newcastle. I mean, Nick Pope and that I think is an upgrade. Trippier, like target outside back, and then Bruno Guimaraes in the middle. Like he's kind of. I've been doing a lot of season-long drafts lately, and I picked him up in a couple places. So I really think that they're in a stronger place overall, and Nottingham just like probably just don't think that they can hang there. So you add that with what we are now calling the kits and wagers bet. I think we get some decent odds there that to capitalize on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with this. Pretty much everything you said. Not sure about the Newcastle top 6 bet. I assume they're gonna add other pieces. Like they've been trying to get other pieces, like they added Sven Botman, but that's really the only player they're added this summer. Like as you look at their projected 11, it's all the same guys. I'm not sure they're gonna be finishing top 6 if you got Sean Longstaff, your guy coming starting because John Joe Shelby's injured, that kind of thing, and even Matt Target, like he's a good fullback, but he lost his spot at Aston Villa. So how good is he actually? Alan St. Maximin, he's flashy and all that, but we'll see.
No reason to add but to that. He's flashy and all that. That's
okay.
My guy.
Okay, sorry. As for Forest, the one thing I think that's going to happen in this matchup is Newcastle is going to win the midfield, even with Longstaff starting. It could be Joe Willock starting there, but you got Bruno in the midfield, and you look at Forest. It's basically 4 new guys. 5 new guys even. I guess they run a 3-4-2-1, I believe, 3-4-1-2 maybe. But Jack Colback set to start as a central midfielder. He basically played on the wing all last season. So you got that in there. You got Nico Williams. He is now on the squad. They just signed him. Harry Tafalo is coming from Huddersfield. He's going to be on the left wing, I believe. And then we'll see if Lewis O'Brien or someone else new starts. I think Marcus Tavernier, just a couple of championship guys. So what they did is grab like top championship guys, put them on their team. So these guys have been playing for, a couple weeks, maybe less. And are they going to be ready to play at Newcastle against a team that, I think the last time Newcastle was at home, they dominated Arsenal. So is Forrest going to be ready for that? I don't think so. I agree with your play there. So
maybe pick up Dean Henderson in like DFS or season long, because I feel like that was a good ad for them. I mean, he was sitting on the Manchester United bench for so long, and he's not like Dave De Gea. I mean, let's be real, probably a better goalkeeper, but Dean Henderson not far off. So that was a good ad, and should probably face a fair bit of shots this week.
Yeah, probably similar to his days at Sheffield United. I want to say for D. Henderson, where and that's what earned him the contract at Manchester United, but just not good enough to oversee David De Gea. So my pick, Leicester plus 100. They are home against Brentford. I think just the general, I like Brentford, but the big thing here is Pinnock injured, Christopher Aguirre injured, so they got 2 of their regular starting defenders injured. That's kind of what I'm looking at. They picked up Ben Mee because of those injuries. He may start, but again, he's been with the team for a couple weeks, so I'm not sure it's going to be the same. And then you look in their midfield compared to the second half of last season, no Christian Eriksen. So you got that in there, and Aaron Hickey is going to be a new fullback, wingback for him. But I think the big thing here for Leicester, even though Schmeichel's gone, we'll see how that goes. But for now, like we've seen stuff with Cucurella being kicked out of Brighton training because he's looking at these other teams. But I think the big thing with Leicester is like they're not selling their guys right now. They haven't found the correct deal to get rid of Fofana, to get rid of Madison, to get rid of Tielemans. Those guys are still in the squad, and from what I can see, sure it's only Thursday. Like those guys are still set to start this match. They're set to stay with with Leicester, and they're not being kicked out of training yet. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Leicester had defensive problems last season, but if you get Fofana starting, if you get Evans starting, James Justins, Castagni, if they're healthy, I think they're just a better team. You're getting plus odds for them at home. Jamie Vardy is rested. I don't know. He probably scored 1 goal every 90 minutes almost last season. I just like them as a better team, and they're playing at home. Pretty simple. And as long as those guys don't transfer out in the next 2 days, I'll take this at plus 100. So there we go. Plus 229 on the team parlay, the team kits and wagers parlay.
Nice. We do have a comment here from YouTube from Daryl Turner. He says, opinions on Aston Villa to add to the parlay. If you add Aston Villa, they're actually away at Bournemouth, so we'll be facing a promoted side. They're plus 105 money line, and what will hopefully be Steven Gerrard's first full season with Villa. But if you add that to the two picks we've already made, it's plus 574. So you're getting some pretty crazy odds with that. I'm intrigued, but I'm a little weary of Aston Villa going on the road for the reasons we mentioned. But I mean, if you want to go for it, go for it. But I do think Villa are like a much better side than Bournemouth, who have really not added anybody this season and are going to just kind of lean on what got them from the championship to the Premier League so far. So unless they add like a goal scorer or some more depth, I think they're going to struggle. But yeah, I mean, go ahead, add Aston Villa plus 574. Adam, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. If you're fine first match of the season, you're fine putting an away team to win. We can look at what Villa did away from home last season, and 7 wins, 1 draw, 11 losses. Not great. -2 goal differential. They only scored 23 goals in 19 matches. You know, obviously we like Villa more than Bournemouth. They're a better team than Bournemouth. I think I'm going to have a bet on Villa to finish top 10. I'm going to have a bet on Bournemouth to finish bottom of the table. That all makes sense, but it is the first match of the season, so that makes me wary just a little bit. But yeah, I do like Villa. Again, this is a better team. You're getting plus odds on them to win. As
you
Chris
pretty much
said,
double our parlay here with those odds from 229 to 574. So
as Chris said, I mean, you just look at the roster and it's like, what looks good to you? I don't know. Does anything actually look good here? It's a bunch of like you got Jaden Anthony. He's a young guy. He's coming up and all this. And these guys have been in the Premier League before, a lot of them. But I mean, that was when they were relegated. So we'll see if Solanke can turn a corner, that kind of a thing. And then I guess we'll also see if Villa can actually turn a corner, because I feel like Villa should have been better than they were last season. Is a full summer going to help them? Maybe. It just depends how risky you want to be with your parlay. There's a reason they're called parlays, because usually they don't work out for you. So if you want to put them in, go ahead. But first week of the season, an away team, I'm probably not going to put them in if I do this parlay. Obviously, I'm going to do this parlay. Just kidding. Team parlay. Definitely going to put this one in, but
we got to find out if this one works for Daryl.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got here. So the team parlay conversation was about 15 minutes longer than I thought it was going to be. So, Chris, you got any more thoughts on game week 1 of the Premier League season?
One quick thought, Adam, you're up in our season-long slow draft, so make sure after you finish up the spot, go add to that team. But no, I'm just super fired up to be back in amongst it, and got a lot of teams to manage, whether it's DFS season long or if we're going to look at our bets. So I'll be tracking along, and hopefully the viewers and listeners continue to tune in, and we'll be chatting all season.
Yeah, again, make sure to like and subscribe to all this good stuff. This is going to be in podcast form later today, so you can listen to this podcast. You can watch on YouTube. You can watch on Twitter, pretty much everywhere. Going to have a post on the site as well. RotoWire.com/soccer trial, free 10-day trial. You can get all the content. You can get the sports betting content, all this good stuff, stats, any kind of stat you want. And speaking of DFS, we have a DFS show tomorrow, noon Eastern. Me, Jordan Cooper, and Ryan Belangi talking the DraftKings slate. But that's all we got for the Kits and Wagers crew, Team Parlay, plus 229 odds. And before we go, I have to mention, we're going to be keeping record of all of these bets that are on these graphics this season. So last season, I know, we didn't. I stopped keeping track because it got pretty bad. If we remember correctly, the fate of my bet hit, I think, 10 in a row. You were about 50-50. All right. So
yeah, that's good against odds.
But yeah, at one point things did not look great for my best bet. So we're gonna get some. I'm losing the word I'm gonna say here, but no matter what, we're gonna have our records up on this screen, so you can see how well we do. If we're going 100%, you can see that. If we're 0%, you can see that as well. But Chris at CHRON8 on Twitter, I'm at RotoZdroik. And we'll see everyone next week. Chris, have a good weekend. Enjoy the time alone here and watching the Premier League.
Thanks. You too, Adam.